once, my ass.
I'm only four. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 31st year of the award at the 35th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1962. Today's guest is appearing for the third time. You last heard him in 1945, talking about the Tom and Jerry short Quiet Please and its fellow nominees. Please welcome the host of the Oscar Doesn't Go To podcast, Sam Meltzer. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Jackson. I am really excited to be back on to talk about a year that is far more experimental than the other 2 years we've talked about.
Yes, we have gone past the Hollywood era of the best animated short category and are heading right deep into whatever the fuck is now happening with a lot of independent, a lot of foreign stuff, and just a generally much different vibe, much more unique vibe, and which makes it all the more fun. But remind us, Sam, what is your familiarity with the best animated short category as a whole?
Not much. You are really teaching me about it. I've seen a few winners. I usually, since I've been following the Oscars for the past few years, I watch the winner. But for the most part, not familiar. The short categories, I feel like most people, especially, but obviously most people, but most Oscar people don't watch the nominees. It's a category that usually gets sidelined. So your podcast and being on your podcast has really been the main source of teaching me about the category and the nominees. So I unless there are some famous animated shorts that pretty much everyone watched as a child, I really haven't seen many of the nominees outside of the ones that we've discussed and we're about to discuss.
Yeah, it's just like the furthest that most people can get with them is just kind of accidentally watching like some Tom and Jerry stuff, or even like later nominees like Winnie the Pooh or Wallace and Gromit and things like that, or the Pixar shorts, of course. But yeah. It's always an honor to introduce people to some of these nominees. And so let's get into them. This year has 5. Our first nominee and the year's winner is The Hole, directed by Faith and John Hubley. This is the second nomination and second win for John Hubley, and the first nomination and first win for his wife and collaborator Faith, which makes her the first woman to be nominated and to win in this category. So just to recap on the history of these two, John Hubley was one of the biggest artists at UPA, which itself was the hot new voice in animation in the early 1950s. However, John was fired from UPA after he refused to name names to the House Un-American Activities Committee during the Red Scare. After this, he met one Faith Elliott. The two got married and started Storyboard Studios, an independent animation studio. They've been making shorts since 1957 and became the first independent studio to win the Best Animated Short Oscar with 1959's Moonbird. And here they are once again with The Hole. The Hole follows 2 construction workers, played by Dizzy Gillespie and George Matthews, as they converse while working, discussing topics like life insurance, dancing, and nuclear war. Sam, start us off. What did you think of today's winner?
So, obviously, the time jump, as we mentioned, is very large since 1945. So evidently,
you're in a whole new world.
Yeah, Hollywood has just changed. If you look at the context of time, just to go on a brief tangent, it's like 1950s were really this encapsulation of Americana and how, American society was, a man and a woman and have 2 kids and work a job, and the woman would stay at home. And during this time period, with these traditional values, musicals were really popular, and movies that were really real and authentic weren't getting made unless they were by very, very indie distributors, and usually the distribution wasn't great and not many people would see those films and they wouldn't get a lot of recognition. So this is a point in American cinema that we're on the brink of change. We're approaching the counterculture movement in the Vietnam War, and you can definitely sense that Hollywood doesn't know what to do with itself. Because looking at the context of the Oscars, there's a lot of inspiration from British cinema that was very popular
Mhm.
and from musicals, even though they were flopping, except for a rare few. So just looking at this short film as a winner in that context is interesting because it doesn't really have a plot. Like it's not cohesive. The
Mhm.
dialogue is improvised, which is
Yeah.
very interesting. It has a very unique style of animation that feels raw, down to earth, like crayons, even interesting coloring, weird lighting. It's not polished. A lot of it is random conversations and ideas. Which to me, I mean, it lacks cohesion, even if I think that's intentional. There's not really anything I took away from it other than two people discussing important topics from the time, like systemic racism. And as you said, the topics that the short is about, described on an IMDb page. I feel like I wasn't able to connect with it because I didn't really get what was going on. And even though, I think I could have at points, it lacked a cohesion that made me feel disconnected from it. And I don't know if I like the style of animation as unique as it is, as different as it is from what I've seen. It just feels incomplete. And I never really felt hooked. It just kind of felt like spewing ideas
Mhm.
for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely get that. But however, I really love this short. So like this is kind of like the Hubley's whole style of animation. Like a lot of their shorts end up like this, where it just takes like these free form dialogue and puts this like very kind of grimy animation. And it's like it's an intentional stylistic choice, at least where it's just like because John Hubley, and especially like back at his, he used to be a Disney animator back in like the late 30s, early 40s. He left the studio during the big animator strike in 1941, and since then like his whole idea was to just give give the people something that like they can't get from Disney, like get some like intentionally like limited like a like kind of rough animation and just to and just let the animation be animated, let it be something different, and just like don't try to really replicate reality with your designs choices. And so that came with him to UPA, and once he left UPA it came with him to Storyboard Studios, where he really had a lot of creative freedom. And and when it comes to like the improvised dialogue, that's just something, that's another thing that he does a lot. Like the his previous short, the Moonbird, or the one that won, that was just like audio he took from his two children playing and then just put animation over it. Like the titular Moonbird was like an imaginary creature the two made up while they were just playing or whatever. And so he brought that thing to life. I, and I definitely get how like the the very like harsh kind of definitely low budget animation style can be a bit off-putting. Like that really was for me when I was watching Moonbird before. But here I just think it works, especially considering like I so this is set within like this, I don't know, just this hole in the ground that the two guys are working in. And I feel like that kind of grimy animation really accentuates the world they're living in. They also live in this, and I think they live in New York. It's like a big, like rough city. And the topics they talk about too are very much a lot like very real, very dirty topics, like life insurance and death and nuclear war and all that. And with and then this is a film that is trying to be responsive to uh the Cold War was really getting heated at this time. It's just like I think the Cuban Missile Crisis was either before this short or coming up shortly. And so it's just like the thought of nuclear war was just on everyone's minds. And so this is something that really does speak to the the people at the time. It's just like it is their thoughts being put onto the screen. And and I just like was invested this whole time. I think that Dizzy Gillespie and George Matthews, their dialogue is very, very engaging to me. It's like I just was hooked on every word, especially Dizzy Gillespie. I think he is just, I don't know, the way his performance is just really good for me. I don't really know why. Like maybe he's just a naturally entertaining person to listen to, but I was just hooked on everything he was saying. And just like yeah, I just thought this was really profound, and especially so if you're planning on watching these shorts, I'm gonna get into spoilers soon. Now, the ending of this is they hear like a big explosion, and then they look out, and then they see that the whole city has been turned to dust. It's like they have been nuked, and they only survived it because they were in the hole. They were just because they were working, and it's just like that's a really damn good ending. I really like that ending. And it's like, and I think that also kind of plays with like, so there's a point in it when they're where they're talking about like a hypothetical scenario where it's just like oh there's gonna be like these guys in a control room who don't know what they're doing. It's like one of them might faint and then turn off the nukes or whatever, but it's just like, and that's just imaginary scenario, but I think maybe that's also like meant to be what's really happening because it ends with the nukes coming down. So I don't know. I've just been vomiting thoughts at you. Sam, do you have any responses to what I'm saying?
Well, I really am intrigued by how much you like this because as I was watching it, I understood why someone would find this profound. And as you mentioned, the thought of nuclear war being so, just present and so relevant really amplified the response that this really independent animated short got. I just ultimately like I think you were able to attach yourself to the conversations they were having and you were able to latch on to things they were saying. Whereas for me, it just felt so inconsistent and lacked so much cohesion that I couldn't pick up on what they were saying or couldn't take anything away from it because it was not only happening a little too fast and randomly, but it just felt kind of it just I didn't really see what it was trying to say specifically outside of the idea of nuclear war surrounding everybody. I just wish I could have taken away something from it. And while again I do recognize that it is relevant
Mm-hmm.
and moving, it isn't something that I can connect with at all because it isn't at my pace, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Although part of me wonders if this really is meant to be like kind of moralistic at all, because that was another thing that like people were trying to get away from, like in terms of Disney, like they're very moralizing, and it's just like I really like how at the beginning in the credits it says it's like an observation or something, and so like part of me thinks that's like we're not meant to really like neither of these men are meant to be like the right one or the wrong one. It's just like these are just two people having a conversation, and we are observing that conversation, and we're just taking it in as like a reflection of like humanity. It's like not like meant to be like oh here's the right way to think, here's the answers to all the problems. It's just like here is a picture, a scene of the human existence, and we're putting on a screen for you. Hope you enjoy. I, and it's just like I really enjoy things like that, where it's just like yeah,
You like the randomness?
yeah. It's like, and it's not really random. I think because it's just like it is. I feel like the conversations really flow into one another. Her and it's just like, and it's also just like like of course this is an improvised conversation, and so it's just like they are just moving along wherever they want to go. Oh, and it's just like, and another thing about the Hubblies is that they are very like a lot of their shorts have like jazz music between them. And they're all like very edited in a very jazzy style. And so that the conversation style, even though this thing has no music, like the conversation itself, I think is just very jazzy, very like a controlled chaos, you know? Oh,
Well,
it's
there is a composer attached to it.
really, I didn't remember any music.
And do you know who the composer is?
It's Dizzy Gillespie, of course.
No,
No?
it's Dudley Moore.
Oh,
Interesting, right?
okay, weird.
I don't know how to feel about that. I
Like, is
really,
it like Dudley Moore, the actor?
yes, he was a composer, apparently.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. Yeah, and like look going to his IMDb page, yeah, he composed this and another Hubley short and The Owl and the Pussycat and some other things. It's like, wow. I had no idea he was a composer.
Me neither. Well, there you have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't remember any music in the short unless there was
Well, I
some.
mean, there's like some music in the titles.
Oh yeah, on the credits or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But yeah. And it's like that might have been like one of my problems with the short itself is just that how it is a bit too silent, especially on the fact that they're on like a construction site. Although it is definitely better than like I keep comparing this like with Moonbird is kind of negative and the whole is a positive, but it's just like at least this does have sound effects. Like we do get like the jackhammer and then like the various things being lifted around and whatever. Or so it's like there is sounds in here, or it's like it's not just the dialogue, and so like it helps build this world around them. And it's like that is a very effective it does it really well, I think. It's just yeah, I just really like this.
I'm glad.
Hmm. Do you have any other thoughts on the whole?
Not really. I
All
mean,
right.
it is nice to see more of a indie, diverse, and raw perspective, especially considering how like in comparison to the other short films I've talked with you about on this
Yeah,
podcast. You
back
know,
in 1940s
yeah,
with
exactly.
Tom and
Like,
Jerry
yeah,
and all
those
that.
weren't having any of this. So
Hmm.
it is an improvement in that sense.
Yeah. And I just want to say also that like in some years it's like it can be hard to point out why exactly like the winning short won. Like why was this short why did the Academy think this short was better than the other shorts? But I think with this one it
It makes
seems very
sense.
obvious considering how
Yeah,
very topical it is. It's just like it is something that like it like of course like with me like it can have effects on people who are after the time who weren't in 1962, but it's also very effective for people who did live during 1962.
exactly.
Yeah, all right, so I will move on to our next nominee, which is Icarus Montgolfier Wright, directed by Osmond Evans. This is the first and only nomination for producer Jules Engel. Engel started out his career as an artist and animator at Mint Studios, later called Screen Gems. Engel then just jumped around from studio to studio, working with Disney, the United States government, then UPA, and is credited for really helping develop that distinct UPA style. And the legend goes that Engel also convinced UPA producer Steven Basustow to get the rights to Madeline, which ended up becoming an Oscar nominee for the company. In 1958, Engel formed Format Films with a few other UPA animators. They mainly worked on TV shows, most notably making The Alvin Show and the TV version of Popeye the Sailor. But of course, also gave us the short film we're talking about today, Icarus Montgolfier Wright. Based on a story by Ray Bradbury, it takes place on August 22nd, 1970, supposedly the day before the rocket launches to take a man to the moon for the first time. And keep in mind, this is 1962. They didn't really know when man was going to the moon yet, so the date is a bit off. Jedediah Prentice is going to pilot the rocket, but the narrator insists he changes his name to something greater, something worthy of the history books. Prentice then reflects on those who have flown before him, Icarus flying out of the labyrinth on his wax wings, the Montgolfier brothers inventing the hot air balloon and sailing higher than man has ever sailed before, and the Wright brothers inventing the aeroplane and changing the world of aviation forever. Thus, he finds his new name and heads to the moon, Icarus Montgolfier Wright. Um, so I like this one. I thought this one was really good. I used to, when I first watched it, I thought it was kind of boring before, but this watch, I really got into like the pros of it because I think it is based on a story by Ray Bradbury, and I think they kind of just took the dialogue from that story and put it as narration, which, is kind of a lazy thing to do. but also it works because Ray Bradbury is a great writer, and I think his prose is really, really great here. Uh, and I did like it's not a very animated short is the thing. It is just a bunch of various still images and they kind of like fade in and fade out from one to the other. But even those images are very, very pretty. However, so I didn't realize this while watching, but later in my research, I found out that the copy we have online is actually uh, a very faded scan of like a 35 millimeter print from the time, and that it ends up being kind of monochromatic when you watch it, but it's not supposed to be that way, apparently. Supposed to be have like very lush colors. And I found that there was a restoration of this short being planned, and apparently the restoration has been finished even, but it's not available online anywhere. And so I would very much like to see the version of the short that has like the full color in it. But as is, even with like I kind of like the style, like the kind of way it looks as is with the monochromatic coloring thing. But how about you, Sam?
I agree that I mean I like the look of it too. I think it's really visually striking. As you said, it's not much there's not much motion. It is a bunch of still images, but like the way they edit them together and the sort of movement that some of the shots follow is interesting and visually striking.
Hmm.
Um, I did not like the narration. I thought that was its biggest setback. If there was no dialogue in this, I would have loved it. It would have been trippy. It would have been interesting. The score is intriguing. The
Hmm.
animation's bold. It's futuristic sci-fi, obviously, kind of, it's touching on some relevant themes in terms of, society really wanting the moon landing. That was something that kept bubbling during the 1960s, obviously, and the
Hmm.
possibility of that continuing to grow. So, like the whole, there's another theme that's very relevant being perpetuated in the short film. But the character interaction was laughable to me. Like the way they spoke made me laugh, and I don't think it was supposed to. There was just they kept and it just felt kind of pretentious with the dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really just the use of narration in general is hard for me to get on board with. It was
Hmm.
literally like he's sleeping and the moon, like it was, why did it just saying the things that were very clearly on screen? It wasn't saying anything that we didn't really know.
Hmm.
And I would have maybe even been fine with less narration. I think my biggest issue with the narration is the actual sound of the voice. I don't like the way this person's voice sounds. And ultimately that was a turnoff. I think this short had a lot of potential, but I just the narration didn't work with me.
Now I'm kind of curious, like how would you tell the story without narration? Like what because it is really just this one guy goes to sleep and imagines three people and then says his new name. Like that's the real story of it, like before he goes to the moon.
Mhm. I mean, I would have liked maybe less story then, maybe just more experimental and um more, visually. It feels like something artistic and experimental, and the fact that it has such a distinct story made me question it. It
Okay.
made me feel that it lacked a sense of self. It didn't really know what it wanted to be.
Okay. So you want like something where it's just like just kind of like a film that's just like these images that give this vibe of like this kind of retro futuristic sci-fi with this trippy music. Okay, okay.
Yeah. Or maybe I just would have read it with subtitles and no audio. Maybe that would have been the best
Okay, okay.
scenario.
The one thing I would say, hey, is that like I do really like the name. I think that is a very good name. Icarus Montgolfier, right? It does lend
Yeah. It
itself
is
to
it
some.
is it is a difficult name to nail. But it's intriguing.
Mhm. Uh, and yeah. One thing I didn't really like is how long it was. It was like 15, I think it's 15 minutes long, something like that, which, isn't long at all because this is still a short film. But for a short film, it does go on for a bit long. It has just like it could have cut it down a little bit.
Yeah, oh my God, for sure.
Yeah. Uh I try to think of other things to say. I feel like I had more
There's
things to
not much
say.
to say.
Hey, but yeah, it's yeah, I did really like the music as well. And I did like the narration, even if you didn't.
Well,
We are disagreeing a bit. I didn't expect
yeah,
us to
no,
disagree
I
like this.
like that. I like that we have various perspectives here.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't really disagree much in our other episodes, though maybe I'm wrong. I can't really
Mhm.
remember.
Well,
It's
also, I feel like the other shorts we discussed were much more simple
oh
and
yeah.
they weren't really discussing important themes. They weren't experimenting really. They
Yeah,
were just kind of, there
light
wasn't as
comedy.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like and it's kind of funny how like topical we start out with this year because it's like and the other years around this, it's just like last year we have ersatz, which is just a guy going to the beach and inflating a bunch of stuff, and like he falls in love with an inflatable woman. And then the year after this is just a guy complaining about about an experimental short film. And so like in the middle of this, we have a thing about nuclear war or winning, and then this other short about man going to the moon. And it's just like, wow, commentary. That's new. It's different. But yeah,
It's
but
definitely different.
But then again, we have an anti-war winner in 1960. So it's not the most unique thing, but it's still it is nice to have shorts that are about something is the thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, let's move on to our third nominee, which is Now Hear This, directed by Chuck Jones and Maurice Noble. Once again, there's no listed nominee for Warner Brothers here, but I believe this was produced by David H. DePatie, so I will count this as his first Oscar nomination. Something worth noting is that this short will be the last nomination for a Warner Brothers produced short film. This is the end of Warner Brothers and the Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies and anything related to them in the Best Animated Short category. Now, people associated with Warner Brothers at this time will still be nominated. We've yet to see the last of Chuck Jones and David H. DePatie, but Warner Brothers has ended its run. And for the sake of numbers, Warner Brothers received a total of 31 nominations and 5 wins. 8 of those were under producer Leon Schlesinger, 11 nominations and 4 wins under Edward Selzer, although one nomination was rejected, that being for Canary Row. 4 nominations and 1 win under John W. Burton, and 4 more nominations while David H. DePatie was a producer, though he might not have been credited as such under the Oscar nomination. Also, 15 of their nominees were classified as Merry Melodies and 11 as Looney Tunes, which is not a difference that is at all notable, but still, it's a fun statistic. Anyway, that tangent aside, Now Hear This is essentially an excuse for Chuck Jones to play around with sound effects as we watch a near deaf old man with an ear horn wander around listening to things. Comedy ensues. Sam, what did you think of Now Hear This?
Definitely feels random in its approach. As you said, just him playing around with sounds. But I really enjoyed it. Um, I thought the sound effects were funny. They were very consistent. They felt expressive. They felt joyful. Random things like a tree blossoming with a bird and the striking colors and instruments playing by themselves and heartbeats and rain that sounds like coins, rockets, devils. Like there's so much shit in this. But it worked for me in that sense because I didn't feel like it was trying to be a narrative. It didn't try to have a theme. It
Mhm.
just felt like random and fun. So ultimately, it worked for me because of that. But I can definitely see why someone wouldn't like it if they're looking for a more narratively told short. It doesn't really mean anything. Um, so if you're like turned off by this, I get it. But I love Looney Tunes. I grew up with Looney Tunes. I love like the Chuck Jones style. I love how animated it all feels. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. It was really a nice 5 minutes. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
all I have to say for now.
Uh, so for for the short about sounds, I really like how this short looks. I think the like plain white background and the way everything moves around and stuff, I think that's really nice. I think it looks great. Hey, also, bit of a other note, this is the first short that features like a modernized like Looney Tunes logo rather than the typical, oh, like concentric circles or whatever the old one was. As and so that's notable. Uh, I didn't really care for this one though. I thought I was just very bored by it because it's just like, oh, funny sound effect. Like with something related to it happening on screen. Oh, another funny sound effect. Oh, another funny sound effect. It's just like it didn't none of the gags really were all that funny to me, and it just kept like doing one and then the next one and then the next one, and none of them really did anything for me. It's just like, okay, this stuff is happening on my screen right now. And it's just I did not really care at all. It just came and went for me. I was just watching it and then eventually it ended. And it's like, okay, whatever.
I get it. But considering that we just had two narrative thematic shorts that I didn't care for, that were so heavily emphasized on change and metaphor, I just and I didn't click with them. It was kind of nice to see something dumb and abstract. I
Yeah.
have weird taste.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like this is like I definitely understand liking this short. I definitely understand why this would work for some people. It just doesn't really work for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just a weird one, and it's just like I just
All of these are weird.
yes, but this is weirder than the other ones. But it's like I don't think it's weird in an interesting way is the thing. It's just kind of weird for the sake of weird. Here, and it's just like and like it definitely feels like Chuck Jones was getting kind of bored of the typical Looney Tunes stuff, so he just wanted to do a short where he just fucked around a little bit. And they let him do that because he's Chuck Jones, and this was 1960s as Warner Brothers was dying, and so it was just like, fuck it, do whatever you want, Chuck. And so yeah, we got this, and it is a short film, and it happened. I I have just nothing to say about this. It's just like
There isn't much to say.
and I can't even remember any of the specific gags in this that were notable to me. It's just it very much just came and went.
Hmm. We
Do you,
really, I mean, we have not agreed on any of these. We're gonna
yeah,
have very different rankings.
yeah, definitely. Like look, like I'm looking at my ranking now. It's just like, oh yeah, we're definitely not going to agree. Um, but if you don't have anything else to say,
I mean,
we will
again, there isn't much to say. It's like, do you really
exactly.
want me to go through every single sound effect and
I'm
every
just
single
saying, it's just
random image
like
that they
there
have?
there might have been something that spurred you with this short, something that is like, hey, this is interesting, or conjured an interesting thought. But if there isn't, I'll just move on to our fourth nominee, which is Self-Defense for Cowards, directed by Gene Deitch. This is the second nomination for William L. Snyder and Rembrandt Films after previously winning for Monroe in 1960. Every time I see Gene Deitch's name on one of these films, I pull up his book How to Succeed in Animation and look up what he has to say for each film. For this, what we get is a story of how they got the narrator. Or as this was meant to be a play on self-help documentaries, Deitch first wanted to get John McLeish, who was famous for narrating the Goofy shorts at Disney, which were also meant to parody self-help and how-to films. However, the recordings with McLeish just didn't work, to say the least, and Deitch had to find someone else. In comes Arthur Treacher, who is often cast as a stereotypical British butler in plenty of Hollywood films in the 30s and 40s. Deitch thought Treacher perfectly fit the tone of the short, and the rest is history. Based on a book by Alice McGrath, Self-Defense for Cowards is a PSA about the increasing amount of bar fights and gives tips to cowards on how to get out of fighting. Uh, Now I thought this was a pretty all right short. I didn't love it or anything, but it's like is this is like a good solid use of like 6 minutes or however long this was. As it's just like it has this good setup of like the different ways you can avoid fighting in a bar, or if you don't want to fight, and then it lists a bunch of ways you can do that that vary in humor. It's just like some of them are fun, some of them are not, and it's just like it's a good little comedy short, and it's just like yeah, there's not that much to say. How about you, Sam?
So this is the one we agree the most on so far. I think the gag of it gets a little old. Like, as strange as this sounds, I think this should have been shorter. I think it should have been like
Yeah,
2 minutes, right?
maybe
Like that
not
would have
that
made
short, but
maybe
like
like half
it
the length.
it
Like
goes a bit long.
it goes a bit long for what it is, but it does have a self-aware tone. How like literally every single building on the block says just bar on it. Like that was hilarious. Um, I wasn't really paying attention to the actual like tips they were trying to give you because I don't think that really matters. I think it was more the visual style of like people getting punched and random crude humor like feet and nudity being present, which I was kind of taken aback by. Um, I mean, it just it like there are a lot of it's pretty random, as you said, a parody of how-to films. It definitely felt like a parody of something you watch in like sixth grade, telling you that you shouldn't drink alcohol or smoke weed. It definitely gives that feeling of some dumb health class animated short film.
Mhm.
um but in the end, as you said, there's not really much to take away from it. It's not very memorable or interesting. It's just this series of vignettes that is entertaining and cute and creative, very, very British, but
The thing
not
is,
not much to take away from.
it's not British at all. Like, well, the narrator is, but it's just
Yeah, the
like
narrator is very,
it's made
very
by
British.
two Americans in Czechoslovakia.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, um, yeah, there just isn't that much to say. It's just like this fun little film. And it's just like it the thing is it does go on a bit long, but that's just because like some of the gags don't really work. It's just like it's one of the things I complain about with like certain Looney Tunes shorts and whatever, where it's just like there's a little setup and then it go has oh here's one joke and then there's a distinct like break between one joke and the next one, and there's just like these very segmented off jokes, and it's just like I think it works a little bit better in something like this where it's just like it is like parodying like the self-help guide. So it's just like of course it's going to be different steps or different tips, and it's just like that makes a bit of sense to me. Hey, and it's just like it works a little bit better than something like the Roadrunner cartoons. Uh but yeah, this is just a very very nice, very easy, very light short. Or and it's just like it's nothing I'm going to remember after in like a week, but it's not meant to be really. It's just meant to be this fun little distraction. And for that, it works.
Exactly. It's nothing more, nothing less, but definitely nothing more.
I'll use that note to move on to our fifth and final nominee, which is A Symposium on Popular Songs, directed by Bill Justice. This is the 38th nomination for Walt Disney in this category, and this will be his last nomination that Walt Disney was alive to see. He has one more posthumous nomination, but this is the last one he was alive for. This is also the first and only nomination and appearance of Ludwig von Drake in a theatrical Disney short. Drake was first created as a host on the TV show Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. He is consistently said to be Donald Duck's uncle, but his specific relation is unclear, though the most sound theory is that he was once married to Matilda McDuck, who is the sister of Donald's mother, Hortense. Uh, I know a lot about the Donald Duck family tree if you want to know more. But anyway, A Symposium Popular Songs follows Ludwig von Drake, who claims that he wrote all popular music and introduces a few short music videos animated in stop motion for various songs, which are original compositions for the short done by the Sherman Brothers, including the Rutabaga Rag, Charleston Charlie, I'm Blue for You, Boo 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 Boo, and Rock Rumble and Roar. Sam, what did you think of A Symposium on Popular Songs?
So I feel like we should talk about this movie. There's a lot to get into. This is the longest of
Hmm.
the five shorts. I feel like the best way that we can talk about this is by briefly discussing each song. Because there are what, five, six songs in this?
Seven.
Seven songs. So there are seven songs in this short musical numbers. Do you agree that it would be best if we just went through the list of the songs and
First, before we do that, what did you think of the Ludwig von Drake segments?
like very annoying. Um
I think he's hilarious.
there we go. Um
We just
I
can't
don't like
agree.
I don't like the overbearing, over the top accent. Um I did like the mansion. Like, I
Oh
think they
yeah.
did a good job with the sound design and how maybe this was just the fact that the recording studio wasn't good and I'm overbuying, like, I'm looking too hard into this, but like there was like a slight echo every time he talked, and it like showed like how big this guy's mansion was
Hmm.
and how like much money he had. Thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah,
Um
from all the royalties from all the popular songs he's wrote.
And also, just something I noticed throughout the short is that it has some weird like sound editing. Like there are weird cuts, abrupt cuts at certain sound effects that kind of took me out of it. And if you know me, you know like I don't really look at technical aspects like that in film. Like I don't care about that usually, but here I noticed it, and I don't really notice it. So there's
Mhm.
that, I guess.
All right. So let's go one by one. First, we have the Rutabaga Rag.
So this has some cool stop motion. Um, but it has like stereotypes, right? Like
Eh,
I mean,
I
like more or
I think
less.
like I had thought that at first, but then I realized it's just vegetables. It's just like if they just putting eyes on vegetables and they're just like kind of keeping them as is. Like I didn't think there was
Yeah.
like there are stereotypes in the other ones, which we'll get to, but for this one specifically, I think it really is just these are just vegetables.
Yeah.
Anything that
Okay.
might,
Maybe I was just reading too much into it then.
yeah, but yeah, I think the song is fun. I think I think it's a just a cute little thing about some vegetables, and I liked it. It was cute.
Yeah, the stop motion was fun.
Yeah. I there was one character who had like these cross-eyed eyes, and it's like I thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
All right, number two, we have Charleston Charlie.
So this is giving Carol Channing and Thoroughly Modern
I
Millie.
thought the same fucking thing. This is so thoroughly modern Millie.
Right? Like the dancing, like the design, like it's quirky. It's a bit devoid of life, considering that's the
Hmm.
Roaring Twenties. But like the
Yeah,
song she sings, like the rhythm of it, like it's so like Carol Channing in that movie.
yeah. It like the part where she's like when it gets to the chorus, Charleston Charlie's our guy or whatever. It was reminding me. It was that like note rhythm that it was triggering something in my mind, and I realized it was the theme song of Thoroughly Modern Millie. It was just like because they
Yeah.
are musically similar because of course they're trying to replicate the same era, but it's just like oh it yeah, but yeah, I like this
And
one
also
too.
like the modern Millie, like Charleston Charlie, like the onomatopoeia of the names,
Yeah,
very much
exactly.
similar, that whimsical feeling.
Yeah, and like you said, the song itself is a bit like it's not as exciting as like something like this should be. Like but it's fun enough. Like it's not great, but it's fun enough.
Mhm.
So our next one is although I dropped $100,000, I found $1 million in your smile.
Oh, just one thing that I noticed between this song and that song. I'm gonna put an image in our Zoom chat here of something I
Okay.
noticed. What is that on his car? It's taking a little bit to load, but
Oh, loading
why are
time.
there pink cannabis leaves on his carpet?
Um, it the thing isn't the picture is not loading for me. Can you sit down on
Okay.
Twitter?
Oh yeah, I can. So just to talk about it for a second, in I forget the duck's name.
Ludwig von
Ludwig.
Drake.
Yeah. In his mansion, the carpet has like these, it's pink and it's two shades of pink, and like the lighter shade is in the form of a design and it looks like cannabis.
Okay, that's weird. Uh,
Like, I just thought that was really interesting.
yeah, sure. The picture's gone through. Uh, I mean, it kind of does. Like, I don't think that was an intentional thing though.
I don't either, but like it looks a little too
Like,
similar.
I'm imagining like that's just like a common like pattern or common the kind of thing that's just on some floor designs or whatever. But yeah, it's. I mean, it looks a little bit like cannabis, but it's not like completely. Anyway, although I dropped $100,000, I found $1 million in your smile. What'd you think?
So at first I was like, oh, the character design is interesting. Like I thought it was going to shift different looks after seeing the first one be this different type of animation than the second. But nope, all the other ones that followed had pretty much the same style.
Yeah, they were
Um,
all cut out animation except for the first one, which was normal stop motion.
yeah, I mean this one I found the voice to be grating,
Mhm.
agitating. Um, like the one thing that was like a very obvious metaphor for the depression was like the mouthpiece, that it was like the circle over his mouth and it was in black and white while all of it was in color. Like that was kind of interesting,
Mhm.
but otherwise I did not care. Um,
Yeah, this was a very boring song. And it's
yeah.
just like I did kind of find it funny that like it's a song about the Great Depression, but it's just like they turned it into a love song. And it's just like I got a little chuckle out of that because it's like, why would you make a love song with this? But it's like, it's meant to be funny. And it just didn't, but it's still just kind of a boring song.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't really work for me.
But yeah. Our fourth song is I'm Blue for You, Boo 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 Boo. Boo Boo. Boo. Yeah,
So
five. There's five of them. Five boos.
here's what I have to say about this song.
I can barely hear it, but yeah,
That was
I
not
get the joke
funny. I
here.
shouldn't have done that. I should
I'm
not
blue
have done
dabba dee dabba die.
that. That was the dumbest joke I've ever made. Um, so this
How
is
long have
supposed
you had that prepared for this moment?
like like a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like that was so fucking
And it
stupid.
didn't even work. It could barely hear it, but I got the joke. And the listeners at home are gonna be like, okay, whatever. This is a bad joke. I want
Anyways,
want you to move on now.
anyways. So this is very clearly trying to replicate a Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra
Yes.
classic feel. I
A
mean, it's a
crooner,
nice
yeah.
song, simple. I like the simplicity of it. There
Yeah.
again, like there isn't much to add. It's just kind of Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby. But yeah,
The animation's a little weird. Where it's just like it's just the head and he's on like the string body and it's meant to replicate the microphone. And I guess that was like a thing because it's like there was always jokes about how skinny like Frank Sinatra was, but still
mm,
it's a bit creepy to see it animated like this. But I like it because it's interesting.
mhm. It is a little interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
And the song itself, it's fine. It's whatever.
mhm.
And now we're about to get into two really bad songs, starting
Mm.
with the Boogie Woogie Bakery Man.
Yeah, this was just full of stereotypes
Yeah,
and
it
caricatures that
is
felt
just it's
very
about
racist.
a Chinese man who makes fortune cookies and it uses the O word a lot, which is not fun. And it's
Yeah.
just and like it's not good. It like the thing is the song would be good if it weren't like
Yeah,
so it's clearly a
like the women are fun. Like
it
their whole thing is fun, but
it's clearly meant to be a parody on Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B, and that's like a really good song. And this
mhm.
wants to be like that. And they were like, you know what? Let's make it racist. And this is the second time this has happened to Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B, where somebody's just like, let's make that song except racist. Because there's a short film that was nominated, I think 41, that was, an adaptation of that song. But it's just like all the characters are like racist stereotypes in the short, and it's like, Jesus Christ, why are you ruining this really good song?
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah.
they're doing
Again,
it again.
yeah, the women are so like fun, and I love how they look together and all that. But then it
Yeah.
just had to be. I mean, here's what I'll say. At least they didn't cast some random white actor to do a Chinese like a voice
Yeah.
for that.
Like
Like they avoided that, which like bare minimum
yeah,
fine.
like thank God it wasn't they didn't do like an accent for the song or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like yeah, it's sung well and it's just like but God, I want to move on. So now we're
Yeah.
going on to Puppy Love is Here to Stay. What did you think?
I don't remember much from this looking at my notes. I do remember that it poked fun at learning disabilities, which was not cute.
So that's not what the short is about, or this song
No, I
is
know,
about.
but there was that one scene of like the kid in the school.
Yeah, where
And
he's so
yeah,
so
I love how that's my main takeaway, by the way. Like I don't remember much about this. I said I wrote down just I like the colors. The vocals are eh. Uh-oh, learning disabilities are made fun of, and the women's cheeks look weird.
yeah, um so when I was watching this, there was I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. This is a kind of doo-wop song. It's just like it's fun, it's cute. But then there's one line that I caught, and it's just like, and the line is, "You're just 10 and I'm 14, but to me you're a teenage queen," and that was like, wait, what? And so I looked up. I started paying attention to the song then, and what this song is about is that it's this 14-year-old who's in love with a 10-year-old, and then he flunks through high school so he can be in the same grade as her, and so it's like he's always held back so they can graduate together. And so, Jesus Christ.
You know what it is? He's having his licorice pizza moment.
Except it's flipped, where it's like the guy's the
Yeah,
older
it's
one
the
and the girl's young,
reverse.
which makes it worse.
I really didn't understand what was going on. Like I couldn't understand what they were saying most of the time. Um, Again, the only real thing I picked up on was that like it showed him in school being stupid. And I thought it was like making fun of people who had learning disabilities, which didn't surprise me because we know
Yeah,
how these shorts can
you
be.
you didn't
But I read
realize
that so wrong.
you didn't realize that the song was about grooming.
Yeah.
God, what the fuck, Disney? And it's just like, and that song made me so my letterbox review of this one is ranking the songs by how problematic they are. And this one comes number 6, with number 7 being Boogie Woogie Bakery Man, of course.
Mm.
Anyway, we have one more song, and it's Rock, Rumble, and Roar.
Okay, so I know you like the duck. I know, but this was horrible.
This was my
It-
favorite song of the bunch.
of
It
course
was
it was.
so fun.
I hated it so much. I thought his voice was so unpleasant to listen to. I haven't cringed this hard since I saw Blonde in a cinema. It randomly brings in other characters. Like, why? I just didn't understand what was going on. I wanted this, I was kind of getting tired of this. And I just hated like his voice and the rocking roll. Like it just didn't work. It wasn't funny to me. I know it wasn't meant to be like great. I know it was meant to be played out as more of a joke, but when the joke
Yeah.
isn't funny, I'm not gonna like it.
Yeah, it's just like it's meant to be like the final song, and so they're bringing back all the other characters from all the other segments. It's like, and yeah, they have the little gonna rock rumble, and then you have the rutabagas, and then Charleston, boop, boop, ba-doo, ba-doo. And it's just like I thought it was really fun. I thought the music was great. I thought this song was great. I just really enjoyed it, and I tried looking it up on Spotify to see if I could add it to my playlist or whatever, but it's not there, unfortunately.
Mm.
So yeah, I this was
I'm glad you enjoyed Ludwig.
and so, but I just want to say that uh before this episode, I told you that one of these shorts used to be like one of my favorite short nominees in this whole category, and it dropped down a bunch. It was this one. It's like
Mm.
I used to think this was like one of the best nominees in this whole category, but then like watching it again, what I think it was that first time was that I was really stunned by the varying animation styles because you have Ludwig von Drake, he's in 2D, and then you have the different and then you have the stop motion musical segments, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And it made me not really care that the songs were kind of mediocre, or like a lot of them are kind of fucked up. And I was just like, wow, I love this playing of animation, how it's using multiple styles in the same thing. But it's really boring. The songs are really boring, but I like Ludwig von Drake. And
Mm.
so it ends up being an all right short.
Yeah, I mean, it has its moments, and I like many aspects about it, but it's just not memorable.
What would you say is your favorite song of the seven? I'll just
Definitely.
list them
I
off
mean,
for
I
you.
know yours is the last one.
Yeah.
Definitely not that one. Not Rock, Rumble, and Roar.
So
Um,
we have Rutabaga Rag, Charleston Charlie, Although I Dropped $1,000 or $100,000, I'm Blue for You, Boogie Woogie Bakery Man, and Puppy Love Is Here to Stay.
um, not Puppy Love.
Not Boogie Woogie
Not
Bakery Man.
no.
You didn't seem to like $100,000. So I think
I'm gonna say Charleston Charlie is my favorite.
because it reminds you of Carol
Yep.
Channing.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
that's as good as reason as any to enjoy a song because it's like it makes you think about Carol Channing. She's great.
Yeah, I mean, she's so funny.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a minute of joy.
Yeah. Uh, all right. So now that we've gone through and talked about the five nominees, let's rank them all. Sam, start us off with your number five.
Oh boy, I'm really excited for
I'm very
our rank.
curious to hear how our different ranks. But yeah, you're number five.
So my number five was Icarus Montgolfier, right?
All right.
Um, yeah. What was your number five?
My number five was Now Hear This, which, was just a very boring short that did not do anything for me, even though it
Mhm.
looked pretty.
Mhm.
Number four.
My number four was my number four was The Hole. Um,
Okay.
I can understand voting for this. If I was around then, I probably would have. And I get why people click with it, but it's just one that personally I didn't really like. So that's number four.
I'm just gonna say my top two is your bottom two.
I figured. I
Um,
figured.
my number four is Self-Defense for Cowards, which is just a fine short. Nothing notable, but it's a good time. Number three.
My number three is self defense for cowards. Same reason as you. Not much to take away from. I loved some of the humor and the crude humor specifically. Um, but in the end, whatever.
My number three is A Symposium on Popular Songs, which is fun enough. It has some good segments. I do like the varying animation style still, and I love Ludwig von Drake, but the songs themselves aren't that great. And some of them are fucked up. So three is the highest it's gonna get. What is your number two?
My number two is a symposium on popular songs. Um, I think this has high points. There are a lot of things I don't like about it. Same reasons that you said, but in the end, it's dynamic enough that I can put it in the number two spot. And at like the highest points of it were better than the majority of the things I saw through these five.
My number two is Icarus Montgolfier Wright. And like I said, I love the visual style. I love the narration. Music's really great, but it also is a bit long. It is a little bit boring, but still, I think it was really good. And you're number one.
Now hear this.
which is my number
Um,
5.
I know. I mean, I didn't particularly like this bunch of nominees. Um, I don't love Now Hear This. I definitely got excited when I saw the Looney Tunes logo pop up. As I said, I just kind of vibed with it. Um, I think what we've learned from this is that I like animation, animated shorts when it doesn't really have a plot and it just kind of is random things happening visually with no stereotypes. So that's what this was. It was fun. I enjoyed it, but I completely understand why someone would put it at number 5.
I'm trying to think if like the next episode I have you scheduled for has has plot, or is it like what is it? I think it might be more boring ones, but anyway. Um, so my number 1 is The Hole. Oh, it is just oh, I love this one. I love the Hubblies, and I think this is a great short by them, and it is just it's just really good. I like the dialogue. I like the everything. I like the style. It's just really, really good. And I'm very glad this is a winner. All
And would you
right.
look at that? Look how different we are there.
We're so different. And it's like I just recorded an episode with Joey Gentili, who is like famous for like having different takes. And it's just like people arguing with him. And I agreed with him more than I did with you today.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like our ranks were different, but we were still very generally positive about all those shorts and we had similar opinions. But you and I, it's just completely different.
Very different.
Wow. But before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share or anything you'd like to promote?
Um, Not really. I mean, I'm mostly just on Twitter at Sam the Parasite. That's where you find me.
Yeah, and
So
just like I realize I noticed that you haven't really been doing much for your podcast anymore. When I was
yeah, I don't do it anymore. I mean, I might come back to it someday, but it's kind of it's
oh
kind of
well, it's how it goes.
it's
But anyway, thank you, Sam, for coming on the show, and
thank you.
thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.